Hello, wrestling friends. I'm Mac Coon, and that means you're listening to FTR with Dax Harwood. Dax Harwood, how are you doing today, man?
Not too bad. Trying to get over being jet lagged from Japan. What a time. What a trip, man. 15 hours of flying, sitting on this this double-sized ass was not fun at all. Falling down on a mat, superplexing from the top rope onto the mat was not fun at all. And then the trip home was okay. I slept the whole time, so I got over that. But it's been an exhausting couple of weeks.
It sounds like deja vu. Like you were just talking last week. You took 3 flights there, 2 flights back to a different country to defend your titles. You lost. And then you went to
Jesus, man, come on. We don't have to remind people of that. God dang.
Hey, is it better to travel now without all that weight? Those 3 belts with you?
Yes, it's a lot easier to pull my travel bag across the airports, but also it hurts the pride a little bit. So it balances out, I guess.
But again, I don't want to bury the lead here. You went to Japan, you wrestled in damn Wrestle Kingdom in the freaking Tokyo Dome against Goto and Yoshihashi for the IWGP tag team titles. Yep. I love that stuff with you and Goto. I love the match. I wish y'all had more time. What did you think about that match?
Man, dream come true. I text Cash because everyone has heard, I think so far, his travel woes. He had a lot of travel issues with documents and then delayed flights and then canceled flights and then driving 8 hours to Atlanta to get that flight canceled. It was such a bad day for him. He got in about 30 minutes before bell time. Yeah, dude, he was very stressed out and tired. But I walked into the Tokyo Dome alone and just walked into the arena. And I know that it sounds very cliche or whatever, but I walked in and immediately broke down in tears, man, because I saw the whole setup. I saw the whole deal and realizing that me and my best friend almost 3 years ago had decided to step away from the biggest wrestling company in the world. And now we're on we're part of, we're a main part of a huge show at the Tokyo Dome for the IWGP Tag Team Championships. It was an amazing feeling.
It's not crazy to think about. If you think about it's Wrestle Kingdom and you're not wrestling the pre-show or the Rambo, you're wrestling for the tag team titles 3 years after you put it all on the line. It could have gone terribly wrong. And this was better than you could have envisioned, right? The whole situation.
Oh yes, absolutely. Man, again, here, just like here in America, it's so, it's such a good feeling. And it takes me aback whenever I hear the ovation we get here in the States and the people that tweet me and tell me how much I've changed their lives, or they're so thankful that I've spoken out about anxiety, or how just our matches take them away from real life for a little while. That's the stuff that, makes me feel good. And then going to another country and having, a crowd that is usually pretty subdued come unglued for the moments we want them to come unglued for. And then afterwards, give us all 4 standing ovation. Man, that's dream bucket list stuff.
It's a louder crowd than we're used to hearing at the Tokyo Dome. And you got them going when they continued all night, especially since that was literally the first time they've been allowed to cheer in years. Yeah. That's a cool thing to be there for that moment where it's really the conscience of an entire country being able to finally exclaim for things that they love. And one of those things they loved was your match. We're going to get into the IWGP titles deep dive on another show. But let me ask you a question, Dax Harwood. You run any friends, any old friends in Japan? Maybe some people, you haven't seen in a while or something like that?
Yeah, dude, I guess I did. Japan was such a great homecoming reunion, whatever you want to call it. Man, seeing Mercedes and seeing Pam, Naomi, seeing Carl Anderson, it was such a great time, so fun. Then we all went out for Korean barbecue and had drinks, and it. I know it wasn't 2022. But it capped off a great 2022. And it couldn't have been any better than that, man. Those two girls are two girls that I'm absolutely in love with. I think they are incredible human beings. I think that they love wrestling with every bit of their human body they have. And the best part is they always will stand up for what they believe in. Naomi as well. But yeah, it was a great time.
And by Pam, you mean Bailey, of course. We know her as Bailey.
Yes.
You
Yes,
know her
sorry.
as Pam. You've known her a long time. You talked about Mercedes, Sasha Banks. Interesting you bring that up because Sasha Banks is just about to sell out an entire arena just based on one match. She had her debut again. What you said earlier, imagine 3 years before, if you had told yourself this was going to happen, it'd be all worth it. Imagine how she must be feeling after debuting the way she did, doing it on her terms. Next thing you know, she also is on Wrestle Kingdom. How do you think her debut went, and how do you think she was feeling about all that?
Man, I know how she was feeling, and she was proud, nervous, excited, scared, all of the emotions. I've talked about it so many times about professional wrestling and how the moves are only there to convey the emotion that you want them to, because everybody knows what that feels like. She hit this finishing move, and nobody knows what that was. Nobody knows how it felt, but how proud she was in that moment and how nervous she was walking down the aisle. Like, everybody can relate to that. And I know that she was so proud of herself because she did it her way. She stood up for what she believed in. She stood up what she thought was right. And she was able to achieve probably the thing she's dreamt about the longest. And I would even say that, speaking with her, I would even say that trumps WWE for her. I know she's very, very proud of what she accomplished in WWE, but I think I can confidently say that being in New Japan, being at the Tokyo Dome, being at Wrestle Kingdom probably trumps it all, because that was her dream, to go to Japan.
Well, dreams come true. And one of my dreams was to have a podcast with Dax Harwood. But unfortunately, apparently, I mean, if you believe what you read, a lot of people are unhappy with our podcast. I don't know about you, but I got a couple DMs this week. One from somebody who kind of blew my mind a little bit, but yet I keep reading people are unhappy with the podcast, Dax. Are you hearing the same thing? I guess you must be the most unpopular man in wrestling right now, right?
No, I haven't heard anything about it. No, of course I've heard about it. Everybody's tweeted me and texted me, and that's all I read. Yeah, apparently some people in the AEW locker room were unhappy with my podcast. And that's okay if they were. But to me, it's funny that, I talked to you and I told you, even before this stuff got out, I told you I had at the very least 20 text messages from the guys and girls that I work with who told me how much they love the podcast, podcast, take two, how much they enjoyed my thoughts and feelings and how I expressed wrestling. And they also enjoyed the fact that I didn't play either side and that I just told the truth. So for some of the people that are upset with me, I wonder why they're upset, because all I did was paint a company that I'm in love with or that I believe in a positive light. And all I did was paint a few people that were in the news in a positive light, because at the core, I believe that they all are good people. But I guess some people weren't happy that I was maybe expressing the true human being that CM Punk is. Or maybe they were unhappy that I was expressing the true human beings that the Young Bucks or Kenny or whoever was. Maybe that's it too. Also, I understand that Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez were not happy with me, and that's okay. I'm not bothered by it at all. They were upset because I said something about Dave Meltzer and his friends painting a narrative,
and he took it to mean something else.
He took it to mean something else, and I told Dave. He sent me a message, and I said, "Dave, this is the only thing I'm going to say about it. Take your own advice and go listen to the podcast." Because Matt asked me what I felt, how I felt about journalists. And when I said that I respected Dave's historical documentation of professional wrestling, because it's top notch. And I said that sometimes that the narrative that he paints gets a little less than respect from me, or the narrative that him and his friends paint gets a little less respect from me. The friends I was talking about were him, Brian Alvarez, and the people of that nature. That's nothing negative. That's just how I feel. That's all. That's just how I feel. Right. And they thought it meant something else. And I said, just do yourself a favor and actually listen to the podcast and not read the headlines. So for anybody that's upset with me, I implore them to please come to me as I would come to you face to face and talk to you and tell you how I feel. To all the people from AEW and even all the people, a ton of people from WWE who downloaded my 2 episodes, who retweeted my 2 episodes, who put over the fact that I was well-spoken, that I was fair, that I was truthful, and the passion, more than anything, Matt, the passion that I have for professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
That's all I have, and that's all I can tell, and that's all that I can portray is what I love and how much I love this. Because there ain't too many things in this world, people included, human beings included, that I love more than wrestling. And so for people to reach out to me and tell me that, and then, God dang, man, then I read that people, that my locker room is unhappy with me, man, that, for someone who has mental health struggles, that did hurt a little bit. But then I had to take a step back. I talked with you. I talked with Cash. And you reminded me that it's not everybody. It's probably a handful of people. Anyway, to the fans, to my friends, to my colleagues that did download and did enjoy the episodes, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope I can continue to make everybody proud with my truth, with my passion. Because this is all I've got, man. This is all I've got. I've got my wife, my daughter, what I perceive to be God, and wrestling, and that's all.
Well, I think you said it better than anybody else could, and I'm glad we're doing this podcast. And I think also, to your point, you got to listen. Like, I saw a headline the other day, like, Dax doesn't care what the AEW locker room thinks. And then I clicked on it. I'm like, he never said that. So listen to the show if you're going to comment, or else you're probably going to be wrong.
Matt, you know what's crazy, dude, is for all these people, for all these years who thought that I and Cash hated the Young Bucks, or we had this heat with the Young Bucks, man, I rarely saw anything that said Dax puts the Young Bucks on the Mount Rushmore of tag team wrestling. That said something positive about my coworkers.
Did you see, I don't mean to interrupt you, but did you see what Meltzer wrote about that in The Observer?
I did not.
He said one thing that did not get much attention was Dax Harwood saying that the Young Bucks were on the Mount Rushmore. And I believe he was saying that in the context of the AEW locker room. But also, across all the headlines, man, that should have been the number one headline from the show is Dax Harwood, this supposed hater of the Young Bucks, said the Young Bucks are definitely on the Mount Rushmore and gave a lot of reasons why. It just shows, guys, you got to go beyond the headlines, and I know that kind of stuff gets you heated. I will say something that got somebody heated. We alluded to it last week a little bit, and we're just going to talk about it a little bit, is Road Dogg decided he wanted to, Road Dogg Jesse James wanted to respond and actually made a special bonus exclusive YouTube video, get some views and kind of talk about us a little bit. I just want to say we're not going to involve ourselves in any bullcrap angles or fake podcast stuff. Everything we're doing is 100% real. We're not going to insult your intelligence, guys.
Nope. There's no payoff.
I'm not saying other people, there's no payoff.
There's zero payoff because he's not going to get in the ring with me. And so there's no payoff. So why even, delve into that?
But the headline was he apologized. And then I looked at the apology and it was not what an apology is.
Right.
It was something like, if I did you wrong at Raw 25, I'm sorry. But why do you need my I'm sorry? It was something like that. It was so strange.
Yeah. So he said, I'm sorry if you felt that you deserved a thank you, but you went out there and you did your job. Why should I have to come back and thank you? And here's the thing with that. And then one other thing, as we're talking about it, when I was putting the match together with American Alpha for Dallas, and he offered his idea, I would never in a million years say, oh no, I'm not doing that. Never in a million years did I do that. I took his idea and I said, oh, okay. But I didn't use it, which doesn't mean it's bad. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means it didn't fit the story that I was trying to tell. And he said, we're talking about the Dallas match. He said, you heard Dax. He said, I put this together. I do this. And yes. And the reason is because there's a couple of reasons. Jason Jordan and Chad Gable at that point had become really, really, really good friends of mine. Right. Gable's still one of my best friends. We talk all the time. At that point in their career, they were very, very, very green. Cash at that point in his career had done a lot. And he was really good. He was incredible, but he trusted me, and also he and I had talked and, we were on the same page. So these guys who were still very green in professional wrestling allowed the guy who has been doing this for over a decade to call the match with their input. Now, Road Dogg spins it and says, oh, Dax was saying, I, when Road Dogg knows deep down that the veteran who's had the most matches calls the match. I called the match and I'm pretty sure it got some pretty good acclaim. Okay. And now speaking about Raw 25, when
you were talking about the Dallas match.
Yes, that was the Dallas match with American Alpha.
Yeah, I was there. It totally sucked how everybody just cheered every goddamn moment of that match,
Yeah. Well, so Road Dogg knows that the senior, that the veteran, that the man with the most matches calls the match. He knows that. Never did I say, you guys know I don't want to hear your ideas. Never. I just pieced everything together because I felt that I knew where things went and fit perfectly. That's it. Going to Raw 25, he says, I'm sorry if I upset Dax by not saying thank you, but I don't think I had to come back and say thank you for doing your job. Again, he is spinning a narrative to try to get fans on his side because he knows it's a time-honored tradition for years and years and years. When you get finished with a segment or you get finished with a match, when there's business done, you walk to the back and you say thank you. That's how it's always been, right? Because one, you say thank you for keeping me safe so I can go home tomorrow and hang out with my family. You say thank you for bumping around for me and making me look good so I can continue to make money. He knows that, right? He absolutely knows that. But he spun his narrative so he didn't look like the bad guy, which is what I think he did the whole time I was in WWE, which in turn makes me not trust him. Now going to the tweet that he put out, saying that I'll make sure you never move up to main roster. He said, well, I couldn't have prevented that, but Dax, thank you for thinking so much. We have the physical tweet.
What was his job at the time when he tweeted that?
He was head writer of SmackDown, right? Head writer of SmackDown. He said, he condescendingly said, Dax, I'm glad you thought I had enough power to keep you off of the main roster. But your tweet said verbatim, said, I'll make sure you never make it to the main roster.
And people can see that shit, Dax Harwood. It's not like he told you that. He tweeted that publicly.
Right. And if he wants, we can retweet the picture of that tweet so that people know exactly what he said. And then he said that, yes, there was a call to me. He said, but the call was because to let me know that I was wrong. No. The call was from Mark Carano with Road Dogg. And he was saying, oh, Road Dogg. Brian was just kidding, right? You know that, right? We all know he was just kidding. They were covering their tracks. He knows that. As a man of God, he knows that. Okay. I'm not saying that Road Dogg is a bad person. I'm just saying those 3 instances, he's not telling the truth.
Well, guys,
this is going to take a turn for the worse or better if I go back to WWE, huh?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because you teased it on Twitter and everybody's talking. It's interesting because there's a couple conspiracy theories around. The first is Punk is using you, CM Punk is using you as a mouthpiece. He's using you as a mouthpiece to try to get back into AEW and to push his narrative. Wow. Now, the other one is you guys dropped all your titles because you're going back to WWE. So I'm not sure how those two things work together. But the question is, Dax Harwood, future of FTR. All of a sudden, no titles. Don't see that many dates. What's going on with FTR these days?
Well, first of all, for the first narrative about Punk, I can give you 100% God's honest truth. He has never told me to say anything. He's never expressed to me that he wants me to paint a certain narrative about him. I can also tell you to God's honest truth, but he told me he said, I haven't even listened to your podcast. Guys, he's a beautiful human being. The Young Bucks are beautiful human beings, okay? All of them are. All I was trying to do was make things right. That's all. That's the only thing I was trying to do. Right. Maybe I went too far, or maybe it's not for me to make right. But in the moment, as a human being who has a heart, who loves wrestling, I tried to make things right, and that was all. And if I was wrong for that, and if I upset those guys, or even if I upset Punk, I sincerely apologize. If I upset my office, I sincerely apologize. If I upset anybody else who's letting Dave Meltzer know that the locker room is upset with me, if I upset that person, I sincerely apologize. That was not my goal. My goal was to make AEW better. That's all.
And that is what a real apology sounds like.
Yeah. So
the future of FTR.
The future of FTR.
Yep. People are talking WWE. They're talking AEW. Of course, those jackasses, the Gunn brothers, said that we have a podcast no one listens to on AEW television and gave you guys a funeral on television. So, for the fan that says, oh, well, they're coming back, for sure to get their win or whatever. But a lot of people think you dropped those titles to leave. Where's FTR?
I talked to Cash and I asked him if he would be comfortable with me talking about this on my podcast. And he said, yes, absolutely. So we dropped the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships to the Briscoes. We dropped the AAA Tag Team Championships to Dralistico and Dragon Lee. And we dropped the IWGP Tag Team Championships to Goto and Yoshihashi. And with that is a new slate for 2023. I've also got the blessing of Tony Khan to talk about this and make a statement about this. Tony has been nothing but top-notch to me and Dan since day one. There are things that we haven't agreed on as any boss and any employee, and even any friend. There are things that there are times that I felt the boat was missed on opportunities for us. There were times that I was super happy with everything we were doing. But there has come a time where we're on the tail end of our career, okay? I mean, I'm 38 years old. I talked last week about how hard it is for me to play with my daughter, and things like that. We're on the tail end of our career now. And so I think right now, this point in our career is the most important time in our career. I mean that monetarily. I mean that creatively. I mean that personally. It is the most important time of our career. With that being said, we have asked and been granted the next few months off of television so we can sit back, reflect, decide, let our bodies heal, and figure out what we are going to do for the next few years, because whatever we decide to do next will be the absolute last thing we do, period. As far as wrestling, I don't see myself after I'm done with whatever we're going to decide next. I don't see myself in 5 years going on the independence and wrestling independence. I don't see myself working in 5 years, a Japan tour or a Mexico tour, or traveling around the world and wrestling all over places. That's why these next few months are the most important few months for us. By April, at least, at most, we will have an answer. But now, again, I have to take in my health. I have to take in my family. I have to take in my creativity, and I have to take in my personal life all into consideration about what we're going to do next. I know what I want to do, but whatever we do, I just want to be respected. We, I feel, have done something so special in 2022, and most of that is in part to the fans. I think we deserve to continue to build on our legacy for ourselves, but also we owe it to the fans to build on that legacy because they made us this past year. So that's my news, is we are going to be away for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long we'll be away. It may be all the way up until the end of our contract. I don't know yet.
When does your contract expire?
Contract is up in April.
And you and Dan have the same lengths. You and Cash have the same lengths of contracts.
Yeah. We signed as soon as WWE let us go. We mutually parted ways. As soon as they let us go, immediately got up with Tony, and we immediately signed a contract then. So I'm not exactly sure on the exact date. Our gimmick attorney, Mike Dawkins, would know that.
I don't know who you're talking about. I have no idea who that person is.
But it will be somewhere in the beginning of April. So I don't know if you'll see us back at all on TV before that. But that's our plan right now.
So the big news, folks, is that FTR is taking a break, and hopefully we see him back on television as soon as we can. I do want to ask you this one question, though, Dax Harwood. There have been some stuff in the news lately, and the thought that a lot of fans have is that this could affect the news that has happened recently, could affect some maybe free agents or some wrestlers' decisions. Has anything in the news the last few days or so affected your mindset about where you might want to wrestle in the future?
I would be lying to you if I said no, it doesn't at all. But of course it does. But also, if I feel that, God, man, this is going to be the headline, and this is going to be where people complain about me.
I was going to say, for all these complaints about clickbait headlines, we've created like 40 in the last 20 minutes.
This is going to be it. But if I feel like we aren't being respected the way I think we should, and that's going to come off arrogant and egotistical. I mean, as entities, as far as characters and what we've done and what we've accomplished and who we are, but also as human beings, I will not hesitate to explore other options. Whether those options are taking a year off and doing things we love, that could be it. Or, whether those options are being presented to me in other forms. There's a lot of things I have to weigh, and I can't give you a direct answer. And it's not because I'm trying to skate around it. I really honestly can't give you a direct answer because one, my answer is going to have to correlate with what Dan says. If Dan says, no, we're fucking going, then he and I are going to sit down. We're going to weigh the pros and cons, and we're going to come to a mutual agreement because that's what we've done for 10 years. We've never once gotten an argument. We've never once had a crossword, and we're not going to start now. So he and I will sit down. That's why we're taking these next however long off, so we can sit down. He can come to North Carolina and stay at his house. We can go to coffee shops. We can, another thing too, I'll put this out there. We're looking into buildings for a pro wrestling school as well. That's one of our things we want to open up. We also have ideas for more real estate together, and also for a future coffee shop. So there's a lot of things we're going to be talking about for the next few months. But at the top of that list is our future. And I don't know how long that's going to be, but it'll have to be before the beginning of April.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Revive with the Revival at their new coffee shop somewhere in North Carolina very soon. And you talked just now about how you're not going to make any decisions without Dan, Cash, Dash, Wheeler, Wilder, and you're not going to start now. And that's what we're exploring today on FTR with Dax, which is the beginning, the creation of the Revival. So are you ready to get started talking about the early days and how everything came together?
I got to try to remember this stuff, but I know you are a master of studying and preparation, and so I'm leaning on you. Let's go.
We're going to start right here with an injury. I believe you tore your ACL. I did some extended research on this, and the word I got is you hurt it perhaps kicking Miro in the corner in a match. You were out for a long time. Talk about that injury and the reset it kind of forced, because you were finally getting on TV. You're finally getting on TV, and then all of a sudden, ACL.
Yeah, so I wasn't kicking Miro. Miro and I were tag team partners. And little known fact, the TV before this, he and I were supposed to win the NXT Tag Team Championships. And it was in the first draft of the NXT show. We saw it. Everyone was congratulating us. And then Bill DeMott, who is not a fan of mine, went to Hunter, and he said, let's give these guys, the Ascension, a shot at the belts, let them sink or swim. Obviously, they swam. So the Ascension got the belts that we were supposed to get that day. So we had this match in Tampa. It was a 3-way tag, Ascension against me and Miro, and I can't remember the other team. There was a third team. But Miro tagged me in, and I just went to kick Victor, and the leg that I planted on just snapped. The ACL just snapped. And I couldn't finish the match. And I remember Victor was very upset with me because he thought that Joey Mercury had put me up to that, to fake my injury, so it would make the match look bad, so they would fail as tag team champions. We joke about it now, but at the time I was not happy about it.
That's weird. That's a weird accusation.
Yeah. I think maybe he had a little heat with Joey. I don't know. But he thought that I had faked the injury. And funny enough, when I was in the surgery room, I sent him a picture of me in the surgery room and said, I don't think it's a fake.
And is it fair to say that Joey Mercury had a decent hand in what was going to happen in the future with you and Cash as well?
So, he didn't book, but it was his idea. Joey Mercury had a big hand in me coming in to WWE. I had my tryout, which was June the 6th, I think, June the 6th, 2012. And in my tryout, I had Mercedes, Sami Zayn, Sarah Del Rey, Angelo Dawkins. There were a lot of people in that tryout. And, Joey really, really pushed for me to get hired. So did Mr. Regal. So fast forward, whenever I'm almost finished with the recovery from my surgery, Cash had his tryout and he did great, of course. And Joey and Cash and I had been talking the whole time I was in NXT. And Joey went to Cash and he said, "Hey, have you ever thought of teaming up with Dawson?" And Cash said, "Well, actually, that's what we've been talking about for the last year and a half. We want to be a tag team." So Joey had a lot to do with putting us together.
And now, that is the word I got, was that it might have been Joey Mercury's idea to kind of put you guys together, but you guys maybe have been wanting to. Let's talk about the relationship previous. In one of your first matches, Corey Graves puts over that you guys wrestled together in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, which sounds like the most fearsome place on earth. But if you're like me and you live in Virginia, you've been there a few times and know the mileposts and know it's a lovely beach town.
It's just a little beach town, yep.
It's a Outer Banks. It's a lovely little beach town. How long have you known Daniel Wheeler?
So, I mean, I've known of Dan for years because in North Carolina, at least at the time, in North Carolina, the talent of wrestling was very few and far between. It was still very much like an old school guard where it was full of old guys who thought that they were these veterans because they had been doing it on the weekend, maybe 4 times a month for the last 20 years or whatever. So it was this very old guard. And there were only a handful of young guys in North Carolina, and he was one of them. So I had heard about him and heard about how good he was. And we had talked through Facebook Messenger and things like that. But the very first time I met him was my one and only tryout in WWE extra spot in, I want to say, I'm sure he knows for sure, but it was Richmond, Virginia or something. We had 2 shots. One was a Raw and one was a SmackDown. Raw is a little more hectic at the time than SmackDown was because SmackDown was taped. So we went to Raw and we didn't do anything. We went to SmackDown and Mr. Regal said, I want to see you and I want to see you together, the 2 of us, in a match. So we called nothing. I asked Dan if he minded if I called the match, and he said yes. That's fine. I was the heel, and we got in the ring, and Mr. Eagle said, "You may go 2 minutes, you may go 20 minutes. We don't know. The referee will tell you when it's time to take it home, or he'll tell you to keep going." So we worked this match, man, and called it all in the ring. And Scott Armstrong was our referee. And he said, "This is beautiful. You're doing great, guys. Keep going, keep going." And it got up to about 16 minutes. He said, "Okay, I think they've seen it all. They've seen enough. Let's take it home." And we took it home. And when the 3 happened, huge standing ovation because the wrestlers, man, it was such a surreal feeling. Maybe the most, the happiest I'd ever been in my life. But wrestlers had come from the stands because they were sitting there just talking, and they just started getting slower and slower coming to the ring, and they then surrounded the ring. And by the end of the match, people were like, people were jumping in the ring, hugging us, telling us how great it was, gave us a big standing ovation. And I mean, we did nothing, we did something, but we did nothing like off the top rope, or we were told not to do anything off the top. And then I got offered the chance to go to Tampa for my tryout. Cash, Mr. Regal gave Cash the opportunity to go to the UK. And so I got hired at WWE while he was still in the UK. And then things came full circle whenever they hired Cash after he got back.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Regal mentioning Cash going to the UK. First time you met in person, you're putting a ring together. And you have this amazing match. That is what we call chemistry. I know you say you can have chemistry with a lot of different people, but that is quite That is quite a moment. So you
We
guys,
we
oh,
shook
go ahead.
hands. We shook hands. Said hello. When we first met, we shook hands. Said hello. I said, "Are you a Brett guy or a Sean guy?" He said, "Oh, I'm a Brett guy." And I said, "We're going to be friends for a long time." And
That's the
little did I
first
know,
question.
yeah,
And then you're like, and what's your name?
yes. Will you marry me?
So with that moment kind of setting the stage for what was going to happen in the future, you're recovering from your ACL. Cash gets hired by WWE, and the idea is put forth for you to tag together. You have a great reverence for tag teams. You really do. You always have, and you still do. Is that kind of what you thought you wanted to do? Ideally, was to be in a tag team, and then when you met Cash, it's perfect. Or were you still kind of hunkering down, trying to be Captain Roughneck, Scott Dawson?
Yeah, I think I always did have a reverence for tag team wrestling. I mean, obviously all I wanted to do was be a wrestler, period. That was my dream. That was my goal since 1993. But like, I don't know if you remember the game for Super Nintendo, it was Saturday Night Slam Masters. And I always, like, if I had my friends over, we always played as tag teams. And if I had three friends over, one of the friends would be a manager, in sitting beside us, and we would play tag. But I always played tag teams. I love tag team wrestling. Even as a kid, like I was drawn to the fact that they looked alike, or that they had similar gear, or maybe subconsciously drawn to the fact that these two guys were best friends and they loved each other and they were fighting for a common goal. I think I always had that reverence for tag team wrestling, which is why I'm so passionate about it.
But how did you feel being put in a tag team versus maybe being a singles? Was that fine with you?
Oh, absolutely. Whatever I could do to showcase my wrestling ability, whatever I could do to wrestle on a daily basis, that's all I cared about. I wanted to wrestle every single day.
Did you practice tagging with Dash?
No, we had like a few live event matches that were the shits, man. They were so bad. We worked with Sylvester LaFour and his tag team partner at the time, Marcus, and they were so bad. I think because we were trying way too hard to be a great tag team instead of trying too hard to just work together. But the matches were really, really, really bad. That kind of, that made me feel like shit, because I had expected us just to come in and take to it like water because we were both so good.
Right.
But we didn't. We didn't at all. And it was a pretty rough affair at the time.
Well, we're going to talk about that growth process. But if you need help with your growth process,
Uh-oh.
Dax Harwood, we're going to go ahead and just do this with just the two of us this week. We're going to talk about our wonderful sponsor, of course, Blue Chew. Then because the nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. That's right. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. Dax, you can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready when an opportunity arises. Man, we made some news with our Blue Chew ad last week, didn't we? We got some
Wow.
attention with that.
Yeah. Babe,
No.
Maria, Finley.
She ran.
Okay, thank God. They're all gone.
They're in the front yard just running, screaming across the street.
Well, usually Maria does, after I take Blue Chew, she does run and scream because she knows what's about to happen. It's for those nights whenever you want to deliver something just a little more special than 7 stars.
give yourself 7 stars, and the process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. They say it's all anonymous and no awkward conversations. But I think something Blue Chew does is, remove the stigma of these kind of medical issues, just like we're trying to remove the stigma off body issues and off of mental health issues. I don't think there's any shame in you get a little bit older and you need a little more confidence. And if you could benefit from that extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. Have better sex. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code DAX at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code DAX to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. Wow, that went a lot better than last time, Dax.
Yeah, they call me Dax the Axe for a reason. I appreciate that, Blue Chew.
Dax the Axe. Become Dax the Axe or become David Harwood. Whatever you need, just go to bluechew.com, promo code DAX. All right, Dax, you were just saying how you had some matches you weren't proud of, but you get some reps in. You have a lot of matches against 5 different tag teams in NXT house show circuit, such as Blake and Murphy and the Vaudevillains. And man, Blake and Murphy were great, weren't they?
I don't want to skip over that. That's where we found our footing, and that's where we found our formula and our psychology was with those guys, Blake and Murphy, man. I would take those matches that no one saw, Blake and Murphy matches, and I would put them right up there with the American Alpha matches as far as quality goes. Those were some of the, and I think you could ask any of the Florida fans, those were some of the best tag team matches they'd ever seen. 2 guys who wanted to make it in wrestling just as bad as Cash and I did. They wanted to make a mark. They wanted to be on TV just like we did. And they, started off, they put us on first and we would tear the house down. They started putting us on third, fourth, and then sometimes it'd be semi-main event. But those guys are so incredible, dude, especially like everybody knows how good Murphy is. Athletically, he's great. He's so good. But Blake, man, he is, and I've said it before and got a little flack for it, but no one really knows unless they've been in the ring with him. He is the Bobby Eaton of our generation. He is so good, so smooth, so easy, can do anything, always in the perfect place at the perfect time. He should be working somewhere, whether it's as a trainer or as a talent. He is that good. But yes, those matches are where we found our footing and found our structure for tag team wrestling with those guys.
You came up with the name The Mechanics. And you get on television, you lose a match against Mojo Rawley and Bull Dempsey, known as Bull James now. What did you think about the name and how did the name come about?
Yeah, the name was fine. I didn't want it to stick because there is a stigma with professional wrestling and mechanics. The name was fine. The guys we worked with are fine too. I have a lot of respect for both those guys personally and professionally. The sad thing is the guy who kind of controlled our future, Bill DeMont, was not a fan of me and Cash at all. And so Mojo was one of his boys and one of his pet projects. So was Bull. He had an affinity for Bull. He loved Bull. So we were just there to give them a good match and make them look good. That's the wrestling business. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's not going to like you, as we've talked about. And when people are in charge, they don't like you. Doesn't really matter how good you are. You're never going to be able to get to a certain level.
You and Cash clicked right away. What I've heard is actually, I'm gonna spill my guts now. I talked to Bull today, and I talked to Bull about what you guys did, because Bull is a listener of the podcast, loves the show, and was a listener to a couple other podcasts, and was a guest on a podcast.
Very, real quick, huge student of the game.
Yeah, and just a great guy, and just a guy who, when you watch then, he seemed a little can't miss, But he says the moment that I want to talk about. He said, "There's a clip I've posted before of the first lockup in that tag match with Dax, and
Oh yeah.
that I was really proud of. We got a
Yeah.
reaction just off of a lockup and a quick exchange that was super aggressive on both of our parts, and we
Yeah.
had this little standoff, and the people were fully invested. I think we both felt it. What do you remember of that?"
Yeah. I remember everything about it. I mean, I loved the match. I thought the match was really good. We had a lot of stories we had to tell in that match because Bull and Mojo, I guess, I don't think they were like, I don't know, storyline wise, they weren't getting along. So we
Right,
couldn't
right.
have this great epic match. But, when it comes to fundamentals and mechanics, Bull is great. I think the biggest downfall for Bull, and I don't think he would mind me saying this, he probably would agree with me. The biggest reason, probably the only reason he didn't make it to a certain level was because whenever he was starting to click, doing the bullfit gimmick, everyone saw it. All the people in the office saw it. And so they all wanted to stick their hands in the honey jar and try to make it theirs, right? And try to make his success their success.
Wow.
And it comes back or goes back to the point with Road Dogg where he gave me an idea and I didn't necessarily take it. Bull knew that if these people gave him ideas who were in big positions of power, if he didn't take their ideas and use them, then he would get heat for it. The only problem is when you're getting 5 or 6 or 7 different opinions and people pulling at you this way and that way and that way,
Right.
then you stop becoming yourself because you're just trying to please everybody because you want to make it.
And we're going to get more in depth of that culture in developmental, but we got show to do on the revival. Of course, thanks to Bull James for responding to me and for giving us that input. And we hope he is doing awesome. He certainly deserves to. You wrestled July 31st, 2014 as the Mechanics. The only other TV match you really had as a tag match was October 23rd. So that's a couple months away. You lose to Enzo and Cass. We're going to talk about Enzo and Cass a little bit more. And then you're kind of off TV for a while. You're doing a lot of house shows, a lot of dark matches, even WrestleMania Access. Were you feeling at that time like you were being tooled up to kind of really get going as a tag team, or did you feel at that time that maybe this won't happen?
So I did feel at the beginning that this wasn't going to happen. I felt that we were going to lose our jobs. Bill DeMott did not like us at all. There is a story that I will tell one day that goes far beyond wrestling. A lot of people have this misconception that he was disliked because he would always make people blow up or he was hard at training. That was not it at all. He was just not a nice human being. Let's put it like that. We were doing a lot of house shows, and a lot of the house shows, if I'm not mistaken, we were working with Angelo Dawkins and Sawyer Fulton. And all those shows, we were putting them over, every single one, because those were Bill DeMott's guys. He loved them, did not like us. And so WrestleMania time come around, and me and Dan were so excited. We were hoping to be able to go. We wanted to go so we could show out at WrestleMania. It was, at the time, it was a big dream for us, big goal for us, because we had done nothing in our careers, and that would have meant, if we got to go, that would have meant we were doing something right. At the time, I had heard from one of the coaches that Bill was not enamored with us, and he was in the process of trying to get us out of the door. Lucky for me, unlucky for him, but lucky for me, my family, my career, Bill was released right after that. And in comes Matt Bloom. Matt Bloom is the best boss that I've ever worked for, and I consider him a boss because he was there. The best coach I've ever worked for, one of the best human beings I've ever worked for too. He knew how to, whereas for so long the PC was run on fear, he knew how to run and he knew how to run his camp. He knew how to get the guys and girls to the camaraderie to come up with the guys and girls. He knew how to lead by example and knew how to lead out of positivity. And that doesn't mean he never yelled at me, because my God, man, he yelled at me a lot of times.
Right.
I mean, there were times where we stopped talking because he yelled at me. But
Well, that's a different kind of coaching. Like,
right,
that's a coach.
absolutely.
He's still a coach. He's not going to be like, you're the best all the time. That's not what
Right,
a coach does.
absolutely.
But he's still not. We've heard lots of stories, and I heard lots of stories interviewing people on why it ended during that time. And Matt Bloom was exactly what the doctor ordered.
Absolutely. He is what a coach should be, what a head coach should be. WWE is very lucky to have him. He could continue to shape the future of that company until he gets tired of doing it, because he knows how to coach. I can't say enough of that about that. But after Bill got fired, Matt Bloom took over. Some things started changing, and we were immediately put on that WrestleMania spot, and we got to go to WrestleMania, and we were so happy, man. I was so happy that he was my leader, and he trusted us enough to put us in that spot to go to WrestleMania.
So during this time off, you're wrestling a lot, and many months later, July 27th, you reappear on TV as Dash and Dawson. You have your music. You have the Revival Say Yeah music. You're taking on Enzo and Cass. Not only do you take them on, and not only are you TV, but Enzo and Cass are a hot act, getting hotter.
Yes.
And you get the victory by way of teamwork, by way of being a tag team, by way of using those advantages. Is that what your kind of ideology was at that time?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. When we started teaming up, Cash and I said, look, we're not going to get over if one of us tries to get over. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. We had decided that we were going to work together, and not one was going to try to outshine the other. We had no selfish ambition at all. But also, man, I got to, give a big shout out to Hunter. Hunter helped a lot. He helped a lot with our psychology. He helped a lot with telling us and explaining to us how the quick tags worked in and out. And another thing, and we've done it a few times, is we do this deal where I figure 4 the legs and Cash comes off and jumps on the knee. Right. And we did it, I think, in this match after Enzo and Cass. We did it to Cass, and we were supposed to attack those guys after the match. And Hunter came up. He said, okay, what are you guys going to do, to attack those guys? How are you going to put them out? And I said, well, I think we're going to take the chair, and maybe we'll put the chair on, maybe Pillmanize them or something. Or we'll, beat them with the chair or whatever. He said, I think chairs are overdone. He said, what you should do is you should come up with a move, and you should a double team move. You should come up with a double team move that you do now to take him out, and then use it later as a false finish. And I'm goosebumps right now thinking about that. And I was like, oh my God, he's such a fucking genius.
Right.
And so I said, okay, what kind of move could we do? And Hunter, I don't know if you know this, but in WCW, he used the Indian Deathlock for a while as a finish.
Really?
Yeah. And he also he did it in WWE too, but never as a finish. He said, maybe you guys should one of you should Indian Deathlock the leg and have the other one come off the top and stomp it and break it. And I was like, oh man, that's what he said. And then you can use that later as a false finish, or going into a finish or something like that. And that's the genius of Triple H. It just opened my eyes to a whole new thing, that yes, gimmicks like chairs, tables, they are overused, and they're the cheap way out. You got to think of ways to get yourself over, because if you use the chair's going to get over. But if we use that move, that move's going to get over, in turn, get us over. So, eternally grateful for him for that. But yeah, that's what I, think of about that.
During this time is a time that my kid and I, and now he's like as tall as me with a voice like me. It's hard to think of him like a kid. He's 20. We watched a lot of wrestling, and NXT was our favorite show. Mm-hmm. And we watched that match, and I'm like, and we already liked you. We knew you. But then we saw the tag match, and we're like, oh, okay, this is cool. But then the coup de grace, so to speak, the special thing, the one thing that got us out of our seats and everybody, that Shatter Machine, that finisher, that is really, it's the icing on the cake, but it's a thick layer of icing. Talk a little bit about how that Shatter Machine came about and how important it was to your character, because you also hit Cass with that Shatter Machine too after the match to kind of show,
Set him
hey,
up,
this is
right?
really dangerous move. This is this move will put you out.
So if I'm not mistaken, the Shatter Machine is what set up for that double star, that stomp
Right,
onto the leg.
right.
Yeah. Again, man, I know I work for Tony, who is a genius in his own right. But right now, we're just specifically talking about NXT. Here's the genius again of Hunter. We were going to hit, because in our minds, we're like, okay, we'll hit the Shatter Machine on, and dude, isn't that the best name for a wrestling move ever? The Shatter Machine?
Like Shatter Machine is amazing, man. Shatter Machine
Big Rig is a shout out to Brody.
Yeah,
I'm
that makes
hoping we
sense.
can get Shatter Machine back for the finish. And I'm looking into that legally, if we can call it that without selling, but whatever. Anyway, so our idea was to hit one move, one finishing move on Enzo, and hit the other one, the stomp, on Cass. And Hunter said, do you think you could do it to Cass? I said, yeah, I think so. And Cass said, yeah, I can get up for that. He said, because if you do that to a 7 foot, 300-pound man, he said, that's going to make you guys. And I said, oh my God, again, all in one day. Like,
Right,
he's exactly right, man.
Right.
Yeah. So we hit the Shatter Machine on Cass, beautiful Shatter Machine, loaded him up, did the stomp, got our heat, left. And, that was the beginning of us being made men.
How'd you come up with it?
Shatter Machine?
Never seen it before. How'd you come up with Shatter Machine? How'd you come up with the move?
I loved. Everybody does. I loved the 3D. In my opinion, it's I'm speaking now just from off the top of my head, maybe the best tag move of all time, right? You can hit it out of nowhere. It's so flawless. I love the 3D. And then also, I thought, well, what other moves are like hit out of nowhere? Obviously, couldn't do a stunner into it because that looks too much like the 3D.
Sure.
And, a super kick, but me and Cash are not super kick guys. And I remember, Jericho wasn't working for WWE at the time. And I remember he was like hitting code breakers out of nowhere. And so I asked Dan, I said, do you think you could hit the code breaker out of the flapjack? He said, yeah, I think so. And so that is one move we did practice at the PC, and it went smoothly, and it has now taken a life of its own, and it added to our characters, added to our character development, who we are. And it's, I am very blessed and fortunate that we found that.
And that's just awesome. Like it's a 3D homage, but it's a flapjack combination code breaker. And a matter of fact, a couple years later, I'm blocked by Kevin Owens on Twitter because I tweeted when Kevin Owens and Jericho did it. I go, hey, this is a kind of a Shatter Machine. Are you guys kind of, like whatever? This is before I worked in any wrestling. And that was back when Kevin Owens was blocking everybody for anything,
Yeah. But
it's kind of cool. It came full circle that Jericho is using it when it kind of came from him too,
Yeah. A funny story. We've talked about it with Jericho and gotten over it, but someone, I might have quote tweeted you. Someone said something about it. And, at the time, I think maybe I was a little bit upset because we were still on our ascension, trying to make it. And that was the one move that people were associating with us and that was getting us over. And they hit it. And I think I tweeted something, or maybe Cash tweeted something. I can't remember. The tweet went out. I can't remember if it was me or if it was Cash. I'm not really sure. Anyway, we flew somewhere from the UK to maybe Ireland or something, or maybe vice versa. We landed, we cut our phones on, and we just boom, bing, bang, bing. So many texts and so many notifications from Twitter. And Jericho said, I'll never forget this. Jericho said, you young kids, he said something like, should respect the originator of the move. And Cash tweeted back, okay, no problem. I'll make sure to tell Mayor Fuji thank you. And oh my God, that's how witty that son of a bitch is. He's maybe the wittiest person I know. But like I said, we've talked to Jericho and squashed it and everything. And, he's got a career that he can be so proud of. And I think we do as well. And we do owe it to him that he allowed us to continue to do the move.
Well, that's actually pretty awesome if you think about it. And Owens and Jericho definitely did a Shatter Machine in that match. No doubt about it. You guys are getting some steam. You guys are starting to get some wins off screen. And then you guys appear on the pre-show, I guess one would call it. It was taped for NXT television. NXT Brooklyn won. You were in an 8-man match along with Enzo and Cass, who, my God, the reaction those guys got. What was it like to perform in front of that crowd? That's your first big crowd, right?
First big crowd, dude. I was in there with, on my side, I was in there with 3 of my really good friends, Cash, Jason Jordan, and Chad Gable. And then we were working with Mojo and Zack Ryder and Enzo and Cass, who were super over. So it was so easy. But man, it was just such a thrill. And like, I think that's the first moment where I was like, okay, I made it. I've made my dreams come true. And it was, a very emotional time for me and Dan. You got to think, man, me and Dan, 2 poor Southerners, 5'10", and like I said, silly ass accent,
No gimmicks,
no gimmicks, not body guys. And we get this opportunity for WWE. That's, even thinking about it now, even thinking about our careers right now at this very moment in 2023, I don't know how it happened, dude. I'm not going to cry this episode. I cried enough last time. I don't know how it happened. I'm so lucky that it did happen. And I'm so lucky that the fans have respected us and taken to us and never left our side and just allowed these 2 short Southern guys who are the complete antithesis of what your typical wrestler is. They allowed us to make it. So yes, an incredible moment for me.
It was an incredible moment for a lot of people, especially fans. Stephen Bonner, the UFC wrestler, just died recently, and I bring him up because he had this match with Forrest Griffin on UFC, on the Ultimate Fighter, that people credit with popularizing UFC. The ratings went up as the fight went on, and it's just like, you talk about drawing, that match drew. Is Sasha versus Bayley the Stephen Bonner versus Forrest Griffin of women's wrestling? Like, is it the most important match in women's wrestling history? Because I don't think I've ever seen a better match, dude. Like, that was probably the best singles match I've ever seen in person.
At least on American soil, for sure. I think it is. But I also think that it could possibly be the most important match in NXT history. You think about it, that was our first really big show. And that was the match that everybody got to see and associate with NXT. And it blew everybody away. And then from then on, we were able to build on that foundation of Sasha and Bayley. And, things, there started to be a few more matches and that got acclaim and things like that. And we got bigger stars. But that was the foundation in which NXT was built and became what it is today.
What an important match in wrestling history. And your history is starting to get going as we enter one of the most interesting ideas in NXT history for several reasons. It featured a lot of people. It could perpetuate angles, but it paid homage to one of the greatest wrestlers of all time and someone instrumental in the history of WWE developmental, Dusty Rhodes, as the Dusty Rhodes Classic kicks off. And you start doing these, qualifying matches. And I believe you had one, I think this is the match you were talking about to me earlier off air, against the Vaudevillains in Austin. September 18th, 2015, was a qualifier for the Dusty Rhodes Classic.
Yes. Yeah. It was that's when we started doing live events for NXT, and we had gone to Austin, Texas, and it was a qualifier for the Dusty Rhodes Classic. And at the time, the Vaudevillains were the NXT Tag Team Champions. And, we had some decently high profile matches, talking about the Brooklyn one there, the 8-man tag, but no one expected us to win, the Vaudevillains had gotten over, or were in the process of getting over. They were the tag team champions, and nobody in Austin expected us to win. And at that point, when that match was over, that was probably the best match we had ever had. It was so good. The drama was built so well, false finishes so well, and then when we won, people just couldn't believe it. It was like, it was 1, 2, 3. Oh my boo. You know what I mean? Like there was a half a second of people taking a breath and then boom.
Right.
It was, I loved it.
Let's talk a little about that tag team scene at the time. You had a bunch of guys. You had English and you had the Vaudevillains, which is, explain the gimmick to me because I still don't really understand. I think they tried to say that they were time travelers. I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not 100% sure either.
You had
Sorry.
Blake and Murphy. You had all these good working tag teams, but you also had the one that was really being, what they say, pushed really hard, the Ascension. Talk about the Ascension a little bit. How did you feel about the way they were presented? Because they were just squashing dudes left and right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to present someone and get someone over, and it was working for the NXT crowd. Two burly guys, and they're just smash mouth. And again, I think those are a few guys who were taking advice from too many people instead of just being themselves. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. I have a lot of respect for both of those guys. So I don't know, but that's just my interpretation and my assumption. But back to Aiden English too, all around great performer, not just in the ring, but on the mic. He can sing. He's a drama major, if I'm not mistaken. He's incredible. But yeah, you had those Blake and Murphy. Like I'd already talked about how great they were as a team, and Alexa Bliss as their mouthpiece and their centerpiece. And she was just a star from the beginning, man. Yeah, she has it all. And then also, they weren't American Alpha yet, but we had Gable and Jordan, which we were starting to work with them on the house shows too. Right. And we were tearing it up every night. Lots of great teams to work with at the time.
Well, it was a new day, in NXT with all these tag teams, and it's a new year. And we'd like to welcome our new sponsor, which is the T-Latch system. And we'd like to thank him for sponsoring the show. And I just want to ask you, Dax, do you have a New Year's resolution this year?
New Year's resolution. I'm not big on resolutions, but I do try to keep myself accountable. I just want to be a better father, a better husband, obviously continue to get myself in better shape, and just be here and healthy for the long haul.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because the number one resolution for millions of Americans is to get in the best shape of their life. But a lot of them fall off the wagon because they fail to have a plan, which of course we know that's kind of a plan to fail.
Yeah, and that's where T-Latch training comes in. My man Tyler Latchley, which is a hell of a name right there, almost as bad as Harwood, and his online training program will give you the blueprint to succeed, that's something that will keep you accountable in itself, is the blueprint. That's something my wife, she needs someone to push her along and make sure she's doing the right thing. And me too, because sometimes I go to the gym and I'm just lost. But with his custom 30-minute get fit, flexible dieting blueprint and 24/7 system that will hold you accountable, that's the word of the day, every step of the way, all on his custom T-Latch training app. Tyler's worked with numerous NFL and UFC, hopefully soon to be AEW athletes, and also the whole general population of folks like yourself and me.
So whether you're a pro wrestler that is always on the go, like Dax Harwood, flying from country to country and needs some direction with training and nutrition, or a busy dad, wait, that's me, looking to shed some weight this year. Wait, am I being attacked here? I'm going to try this out myself, because FTR listeners are in luck. Just DM Tyler on any of his social media platforms, FTR, to receive a free nutrition guide, a free meal prep guide, and 20% off his custom 12-week online training program. Follow and DM Tyler at TLatch510 on Twitter and Instagram and change your life today. Guys, we want to thank the TLatch training app for sponsoring the show. Go ahead and give it a shot. Doesn't sound like there's anything to lose. Go ahead. It's a brand new year, can be a brand new you. And now, what were we going to say?
I was just going to say that, like, I've talked about it before, about my weight loss journey and my struggles with my body image and body dysmorphia and, mental health in general. And that all comes down to my physical attributes, and being able to have someone to hold me accountable and help me reach my goals. That's something that I'm really, really looking forward to, man. That's as serious as I can get, because for so long, I've always worried and wondered, am I doing the right thing? Am I eating the right foods? Am I eating enough? Am I eating too much? And this is something that's going to help me as far as reaching the goals that I've wanted to reach for a really, really long time.
Well, I'm going to give it a shot myself, because my problem, Dax, is not body dysmorphia. My problem is body morphia. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I get it. I've been there, brother.
So, back to the show, guys. We went through all those tag teams. There's so much going on. It's a very hard environment to show how good you are, but yet you do. In the opening match of October 7th, Takeover Respect. And it's the perfect match for you guys, because there's two huge stars in NXT, single stars, operating as a tag team with some miscommunications against a well-oiled machine of the Mechanics. And it's Samoa Joe and Finn Balor in the Dusty Rhodes Classic semifinal. I think that was the match where you guys really kind of found yourself, as far as, hey, maybe one-on-one we'd have some trouble, but if we do this here with two of us and this here with two of us, we are the better team.
Yeah, I think that's the match that I know that's the match that opened up a lot of eyes in the back as to what we could do and what we were capable of. And we could be the ones to carry the tag team division, because at that time, the period of time in wrestling, the Young Bucks were completely changing the landscape of tag team wrestling. And they were doing it through acrobatics and high flying moves and these spectacle of matches. And so I think Hunter saw that day, he saw, wait a second, I have a tag team who is a traditional tag team, who is the antithesis of what the Young Bucks are, but they're still capable of having these great matches. And that's the one that made people think, all right, we can run with them. Funny enough, we had as our producer, Joey Mercury was our producer, and Joey will never get the credit he deserves for being smart, man, in the business. He's a smart human being as well. But as far as in the business, he helped us put that match together. He gave me and Dan tag team tricks, opened our eyes to what we could do and as a team, and also opened our eyes to how you make the rules work in your favor. That's one thing I think a lot of tag teams are missing then and today is they say, okay, there's four of us. Let's just stay in the ring and do this. Boom, 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 boom. And get a great reaction. And I think that's where they think it's creative, because they've got all four of them in there and they're doing this creative stuff. The creativity comes around the rules. You know what I mean? They come
absolutely,
because if there are no rules, then why don't we all just fight from bell to bell? You understand? And so when you can take your idea and say, okay, we could do it like that, but what if we do it like this, and we have the referee and we make the referee mean something? He's just not a fifth guy in there. We make him mean something. And then when we skate around those rules, it makes it easier for us as heels to get a little bit of heat. But also it makes it more logical for the fan that's sitting there watching and scratching their head saying, okay, this referee's counted to 5, 10 times. You know what I mean? So I owe a lot of the nuances that I learned to Joey Mercury.
Corey and Byron are doing an amazing job kind of creating this idea of who you guys are. And one thing that's said a couple times is you guys are best friends. Mm-hmm. Talk about the relationship with Cash developing over this time from, oh yeah, I know you, dude. We're cool. And man, we wrestle good together, into, man, I will die for you.
Yeah. I feel like it's a relationship that continues to grow today. And I would absolutely die for him, and I'm confident enough to say that he would for me. At the time, we traveled together everywhere. We never drove in different cars. We slept in the same hotel rooms. We were always constantly together. At training, we were together. It was a friendship that just kept, morphing to more and more and more. And like I said at the outset of the program, we've never, ever been in an argument, never been in a fight, never had a crossword, never really a disagreement. I mean, we've said, I don't know if that idea is going to work here. And then he might've said, well, I think it would because of this. And then we'll come to a common ground, but never have we ever, been upset with each other or whatever. And that's so crazy because, for me, especially over the last, aside from 2022, I was very abrasive and not a mean person. I just wanted to make it so bad, and I wanted to be great so bad that I could have been abrasive. And I always butted heads with a lot of the writers because I felt that they didn't care about us. And I felt that they were trying to exploit us as these dumb Southern hicks. And like I've talked about on our first episode, I'm not a big fan of that because, we're not. Not all Southerners are stupid. Not all Southerners fuck their cousins. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what they were trying to paint us as. Like they would give us this script and it would say, I reckon I'm going to go over yonder and holler for Nana and we're going to have our roadkill soup. And I'm like, man, I'm pretty damn intelligent and I don't speak like this. And so we would have, if there was ever a time where I was mad at somebody like Michael Hayes or John Laurinaitis, he would be right there with me, and same for him. And like, again, real quick, one of the tweets where Road Dogg obviously was talking shit about me when Miro made fun of me, which me and Miro are like best buds.
Oh, that
was Shawn Michaels' birthday. I wanted to put a picture of the greatest wrestler of all time or something. And Miro said, you should have added him. And Road Dogg wrote under, Miro, he has no guts. I hope you're doing well. Cash went off on him on Twitter. And of course, Road Dogg backpedals and says, oh no, I thought we were just working, brother. I'm like, oh, dude, come on, man. You don't like me. It's okay. You don't like me. You tried to hinder me at my job. You tried to make sure my family wasn't fed. It's okay.
Well, as he clearly explained in his apology, Dax, he doesn't dislike you. You just rub him the wrong way.
Yes. The very first day we met at NXT Dallas, I rubbed him the wrong way. The 10 minutes we met, whatever.
Now, Dawson and Dash, right? And the Shatter Machine in this match with Finn and Samoa Joe, it's, as you say, over. Like, people know it's a thing. You guys are getting steam. November 11th, NXT, you beat the Vaudevillains for the NXT championships.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big deal because,
Huge.
I know it's nice to have titles and stuff, but in NXT in particular, that means they're kind of saying, hey, this is someone you should at least look at or keep an eye on. This isn't someone that's being slipped through the cracks. Right. That must have been a cool thing for you.
Yep. These are the guys we're going with right now. That was a huge moment in my career, in my life. Like I was, I can't describe it. Indescribable. No one thought we were going to win. And then when we won, it was then they kind of reacted after that. But yeah, huge moment in my career. First time ever winning a WWE championship, after I had dreamed and prayed for literally my whole life, to become either a WWE or WWF, WCW or ECW heavyweight champion. I finally won a championship in WWE with my best friend.
And you talked just now about what made you guys best friends. What are the qualities that Dax or that Cash has as a human being that makes him someone that you love being friends with him?
He's up front. If you're his friend, he's always going to stick up for you, right or wrong. He will let you know if you are wrong, but he will still stick up with you, or stick up for you. Has made so many sacrifices for me and my family. So many sacrifices for professional wrestling. And he's such a hard worker. And, he's always made sure that he put me above him. And I think that's what means the most to me.
He's just the greatest. So that's our segment every week, which is why Cash is the greatest guy in the world. You guys hold these titles through the end of the year. Mm-hmm. We're talking about 2015 at this point. Mm-hmm. You hold it through the end of the year, including a takeover defense. You know, if they're keeping those titles on you, they think something of you. You defeat Enzo and Cass in London takeover to defend. Talk a little bit about them as a tag team, them and them now.
Enzo and Cass were incredible, dude. Like, the big first marquee matchup we had was in London Takeover. One of my favorite road trips we ever took. We flew there, but one of my favorite trips we ever took. And that match was so beautiful. Everyone, all the fans, thought that we had been built up as champions just to drop the belts to those guys. And we had this match. And dude, I can still remember right now the sound that I got when Enzo gave me the rocket launcher, gave Cash the rocket launcher. Bam, 1, 2. I pulled his feet out, and everyone thought it was a 3, and they were lost their minds. And and then I grabbed Carmella and put her in front of me. She turned around, she gave me the slap. Cass charged in at me. He took a post. Boom. We went inside, got a tag in, and we gave Enzo the super Shatter Machine, where I came off the top with Enzo and Cash gave him the Shatter Machine. 1, 2, 3. That match was one of my favorites. And again, another eye-opening match that we could just build onto our legacy and also our resume. And then we fast forward to we get the call that we're going to go to the main roster and work, not move up to the main roster. We're going to go to the main roster and work a pay-per-view Roadblock. And it's Enzo and Cass against myself and Cash. And everyone thought that we were going to lose for sure. They were finally going to get the belts. We had this match. Please, I'm begging everyone to go back and watch that match. The timing is perfect. God, it sounds like I'm putting myself over, but the heat is perfect. The false finishes are perfect. They play their part so well. The crowd's incredible. And then we give Big Cass the Shatter Machine on the floor, which hurt like hell. And then we did the opposite of what we did in London, where Cash came off the top with the double knees, and we gave Enzo the Shatter Machine and won that one. And that one opened up a lot of eyes to the main roster. We got texts from a lot of people like John Laurinaitis and Hunter, Scott Armstrong, about how much they loved that match and, how that was tag team wrestling. So those are 2 matches that I didn't want to gloss over. Also don't want to gloss over the fact that Hunter told me and Dan before the feud, as the feud was getting started, he said, obviously these guys are super entertaining and obviously they're super over, but for them to move up to the main roster, we have to make sure they can make money and make people feel. And so that was the job of our feud with them. I was pretty sure we weren't going to drop the belts to them ever, because they were going to go to the main roster pretty soon, but he trusted us in giving them a money-making feud and making them fight and not just be a comedy act. And that's one of the things I'm super proud of as well. I know Enzo gets a lot of flack for not being a great technical wrestler, but I think it's only because he's so good on the mic and he's so charismatic. We learned more from Enzo and Cass than almost anybody in wrestling. We learned like pacing with those guys. We learned when to take a moment and allow things to breathe. And we also learned that, those guys were so over, man. We learned how to work, that we learned the difference in working with someone who is over and working with someone who's good. Because at the time we were trading matches. We were working with those guys, but we were also working with American Alpha. And at the time, American Alpha weren't over yet. So we're going out, and we weren't either. So we're going out with those guys, and we're tearing the house down. I'm not even kidding. Every night, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And we get the reactions that we want. It may take a while, but we get there. But working with those guys allowed us to understand the difference in working with someone who is good and in the process of getting over, and working with guys who are already super over. And so it just they were way better than people give them credit for.
NXT Black and Gold, and I would argue, you said earlier, Tony Khan is my boss now, but I'm gonna say nice things about Hunter then. Has there ever been a system like that on TV that takes guys from unknown to being completely big stars?
No, and it worked, man. Like it worked. I think maybe in the territory days, you know what I mean? That because that happened in Mid-South with Rock and Roll Express. They came in as relative unknowns because they came from Memphis. There was a big trade with Memphis and Mid-South. And so the Rock and Roll Express came in, and they gradually started getting over. And at the same time, the Midnight Express did the same thing. So not since the territory days do I think that happened with a group of guys and girls.
And the opportunity for fans is like, we don't know these guys. I don't know who Scott Dawson is. I don't know who Enzo is. I've never seen him wrestle. So let me get to know him. The characters take place. The matches take place. What an era of wrestling. The golden age of NXT is, man, second to none in a lot of ways. February 18th, 2016, you're doing one of these. It always seems strange to me. You guys would wrestle in front of like 18,000 people in Brooklyn, and then 150 people at Crystal River. This is from the Observer. The main event was a non-title three-way where Jason Jordan and Chad Gable beat Blake Murphy and Dash and Dawson. Dash and Dawson, for the first time, were billed as the Revival. Do you remember coming up with that name, the Revival? How did it come about? And do you remember introducing it to the fans for the first time at all?
I don't remember that being the introduction, but I remember coming up with it. And the person that came up with the Revival was actually Sami Zayn. We were in the gym at the PC together, and he was like, he was putting me and Cash over as this great tag team and one of the best tag teams he's seen working wise in a very, very long time. And I could be wrong, but I think Creedence Clearwater Revival was on the radio at the gym, or maybe he had just listened to it. But he said, there's Creedence Clearwater Revival, CCR, you guys could be TTR, Tag Team Revival. And I was like, oh, that's a hell of an idea. And so we thought about it, and we pitched it to Hunter, and Hunter liked it, except for he just wanted to call us the Revival.
Wow. That is quite a creative committee there.
Yeah.
Sami Zayn, and of course Hunter, just showing from all your stories and other things I've heard that he's open to ideas, that you're telling him things. He's like, I like this, but I like this better, maybe give it a try, whether it be the way you guys finished that one match, the Shatter Machine, and then the name of the Revival. Was it important to you to have a name, to not be Blake and Murphy as far as name wise, to have, we are this thing, we are this entity?
For sure. For brand purposes, we needed a name to be associated with. We can be Dash and Dawson or Cash and Dax or whatever, but we need something to be associated with, especially if we wanted to go down as a great tag team, and we needed that brand. And I think that was the genius of Hunter, is he understood the Revival was more marketable than Tag Team Revival. I think Tag Team Revival would have put us in a smaller box, but just the Revival could have been more marketable. And again, that's the genius in him.
And it said it all. It said it all. The Revival, you're reviving a lot of things in wrestling, whether it be reviving a arm behind the back body slam into a Northern Lights type situation, or a slingshot suplex, or all the things, all the Buzz Sawyer type moves that Cash likes to do. You guys are reviving a lot of old wrestling, but putting a new spin on it. When you think about the revival and this era, what is your fondest memory on screen, and what does it remind you about off screen?
So on screen, honestly, I don't know. It all kind of blurred together. But what I'm most proud of, especially at that point, is we decided to take tag team wrestling and put the art form back into it. Because for so long, up until then, especially in WWE, like I think the people on the main roster knew there was no real money in tag team wrestling because Vince did not like it. Regardless what someone else wants to tell you, Vince didn't like it. He doesn't like tag team wrestling. And so tag team wrestling had become formulaic, especially on the main roster. This guy would get in, he'd do his stuff, boom, 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 tag his partner in, his partner would do his stuff, boom, boom, boom. Then they if they were heels, they'd grab a hold, they'd grab that hold, people would clap, 3 elbows, and after the 3rd elbow, that heel would stop him, get another one of his special moves in, or whatever, then tag his partner in, and then maybe that partner would let the other guy give him a jawbreaker, boom, and then there was a hot tag, and they would run the hot tag and hit all these moves. And that's what tag team wrestling had become. And when we came in, might be patting myself on the back, but you're more than welcome to go back and watch some of the matches. When we came in, we made it about the art of the tag. Can I do this right? Here we go. This is the drama, where the baby faces are trying to get the tag, but they can't. That's the drama in tag team wrestling. You beat down their best friend for 5 minutes and they're out there and all they can do is watch. That's it. And beg for this tag. They're reaching out. Please tag me so I can come and save your life and save the day. And that's the drama. And I think that's what we put back in. We made hope spots mean something. Again, the hope spot wasn't 1, 2, 3. Oh, back elbow. Let me pick you up and hit you with a big, huge move. Bam, 1, 2, kick out, tag my partner in. We made the hope spot mean something. That's the drama, and that's the emotion that you get from the fans, because then you as heels, especially tag team heels, but as heels, you have to be unselfish. Right? You have to sacrifice your cool moves and you have to sacrifice a lot of the cool things you do, because you got to make sure those baby faces get over, because the job in wrestling is to make the baby face the big star so they can in turn draw the houses so we can all make the money. That's all the heels do. Right. And so for us, for example, if me and Dan would stop this baby face and a shoulder to the post or whatever, boom, we were working the arm, maybe a couple of deals on the arm, and we got him in a hold, right? And that baby face would start to work. He would start to pull me towards his corner and reach for that tag, reach for his partner, and I'd hold him and I'd put all my weight back, and he was putting all his weight forward and trying to get the tag, and we'd wait for the people to come, and then maybe I'd take the baby face's hair and spin him back or something. And as I'm spinning him, he would arm drag me to my corner, and I would tag Cash as that baby face is crawling to his corner. Cash would slide right in front of him, grab that arm, shoot that baby face off to a corner. Cash would run and jump, and that baby face would move at the last second. Cash would hit the top turnbuckle. Boom, we're double down here, right? The people would start to come, and they think this is going to be the hot tag. Right before that tag is made, I get the tag. I come in with all intent and all urgency, slide right in front of him, blast off the illegal baby face. Boom, he goes down. Turn, I'd throw a wild swing at the babyface in the ring who'd catch me, give me a belly to back. Boom, another double down, and he gets up and goes to the tag, and that babyface is not there. Now we've built up the drama. His partner's not there. We've built up the drama. The people understand this guy wants to get a tag because he's got the shit kicked out of him for the last 5 minutes, and the only way they can win this match is if his best friend comes in and saves his life. And that was the difference, and that's the thing I'm most proud of, how we changed the dynamic of tag team wrestling. Like, if you've seen it a million times now, but there is a hope spot that we did where we would have the guys in an arm bar, right? They're reaching for their partner. They give us one forearm shot. Boom, we kind of loosen up the arm bar. One more. Boom, we grab the wrist. As we grab the wrist, that baby face is reaching for his partner, right? And he's reaching and we're pulling, and he's reaching and we're pulling. And then he gives me a punch. Bam, I hold on to him. He reaches out again, Those are the things that I'm most proud of that we brought back to tag team wrestling.
Man, that is a breakdown that you'll never hear anywhere else. That was awesome, man. That's like, as a fan, it's just such a pleasure to hear that.
Oh,
This
thank
time in
you.
your life, off screen, you make a friend, a brother, best friend you could possibly have. What, looking back at this time in your life, how crucial is it to the life you have now?
Oh my God, man. It's incredible. We always decided we never want to have a singles career. And we've always fought for what we believed we deserved, what we earned. I remember right before Dallas, real quick, I'm going to take my first drink of the day. We'll talk about this later.
Sure. We're going to talk about it in about 2 minutes.
So I remember at WrestleMania Access right before Dallas, we're the NXT Tag Team Champions, right? And I find out there's this guy who is making more money than me in cash. And he is not featured. He is not. And at the time, they weren't sending out everybody on the house show loops. They were just sending out the people that were going to be used or could potentially be used. This guy would sit home more often than not. I don't want to say his name because he's still wrestling now. But I found out he was making more money than us. Again, we're the champions. We're out every weekend on the Florida loops. We're out every weekend on the big loops out of state. We're on the takeovers. And I was so mad. So I talked to Dan and I said, I'm going to say something to Canyon Seaman, who was the head of talent relations or whatever in NXT. And I saw him at the catering and I said, I need to talk to you. And in no uncertain terms, I said, we're busting our ass, wrestling 30 minutes every single night, doing all these shows. And this guy makes more money than we do. That's bullshit. And Dan stood right by my side and never, even though we could have lost our jobs right then because I was giving him an earful, he stood right there by my side and we stood up for what we believed in and we got it. We got a raise. The very next week we got a raise. And that's like, man, that tells you what a great human being he is and what I'm allowed to do with him. So not only are we building at the time, are we building this legacy and we're changing the structure of tag team wrestling, but we're also fighting for what we believe in. Cheers.
That brings us to the end of our talking about the beginnings of the revival. Of course, all that controversy you do of saying nice things about people. It's just terrible. It's a terrible human being. All those terrible things you said about Enzo and Cass and Gable and the Vaudevillains. It's awful. But I'll tell you what's not awful is tequila. Dax, what is the tequila of the week?
So this is one I've been wanting to try for a very, very long time. It's called Como's Añejo Cristalino. And it's an añejo, which, usually añejos are aged in whiskey barrels for a year, maybe a couple of years. It depends if it's an extra añejo or whatever. But this one is actually aged in white wine oak barrels. So it has more of a sweet taste. And then it's distilled through charcoal to take away and strip the color, which I usually don't like because that can also take away from some of the flavor, some of the agave flavor too. But this one here is supposed to be one of the best. It was $120 for a bottle, so it better be one of the best. And it's made in Tequila, Mexico, which is pretty rare. The bottle, just like my favorite Clase Azul, the bottle is completely hand painted, hand carved, or hand crafted. And that being handcrafted preserves like the aromas and things like that in it. So this will be my first try of this one. We'll give it this is my first taste. I had a little taste earlier, but this is my first real swig of it. Oh, it smells very caramelly. Let's go. As you can see, like, it's not like the other añejos, which are dark. It's completely crystallized.
Dax is taking a sip. He smells it. He swishes around.
Oh yeah, very smooth, very good. A little too sweet for my liking. Sometimes I like a little bit of the bite of the agave because that's why you drink the tequila. You want the taste of the agave, but it is very smooth and easy drinker. I could sip on this for hours and hours and hours, but I will not. I will only have 2 glasses and,
Moderate pours.
yeah, moderate pours. But, if you have some extra money and you want to treat yourself, I would say give it a try. Especially if you like the sweetness of some of your spirits.
1 out of 10. Where do you rate
1
it?
out of 10. I would say 8.1.
Ooh, that is a high score on the Dax Harwood scale.
Pretty high
So before
score.
before we go, we're going to bring you a new segment, which is Dax Harwood's 7-star match of the week. Do you have a match in mind that you want to share with people that they can watch that you suggest as a match that you really enjoy?
One that they can easily find. I guess in talking about the revival today and the beginnings of the revival, I probably should talk about a tag team match. I don't know how readily available it is to find. I know you can go on Daily Motion. Let me search it right now. Which Daily Motion is not the best app in the world, but it'll do the job, especially if you're on a treadmill or something.
Wrestling fans can be pretty resourceful about finding matches.
And I'm sure they're way smarter than me about technology. Let's see here. I'm looking for it. Okay, here we go. So I typed in on Daily Motion, Midnight Express versus the Fantastics. It went the whole hour of television. Well, with the match plus interviews and things, the whole hour of television. The actual runtime on Daily Motion is 27:44. But it's from NWA Worldwide, April the 26th. Can you guys see that? Maybe.
Yep,
April the 26th, 1988. And the way that they use all 4 guys while also using the referee and abiding by the rules, and how the tag team sequences are so flawless. That's what makes a great bumping chicken shit heel tag team. Not everybody should work like that. Not every heel or every heel tag team should work like the Midnight Express. But these guys were moderate sized guys. And their job was to bump around and make these other guys look good. And they did, man. They bumped for 30 minutes straight. There's, this beautiful spot where Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton, they shoot in the 2 Fantastics, Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton. Those guys stop with their heels, fall backwards, give an up kick, turn around, double swing, atomic drop. They run into each other. It's the perfect key to a bumping heel. Taking an entertaining ass kicking. And I would suggest you go and study that one.
Moderate sized guys for now, or for then, you know what I'm saying? Like, Bobby Eaton was not a little tiny fella by any stretch of the imagination.
Not at all, dude.
So that's your match, guys. Look it up. Fantastics versus Midnight Express from Worldwide, 1988. And of course, Fantastics very underrated. And Midnight Express getting properly rated as maybe the best tag team in the history of wrestling. Hey guys, we want to thank you for listening so much. We just enjoy all the interaction on Twitter and all the listeners. The YouTube comments are just unanimously positive, which if you've ever looked at YouTube comments, is not really something that happens. So we want to thank everybody it's usually just terrible, like I don't look at YouTube comments. Like if I put a song up there, I'll never look at them because people are just mean,
Dude, I can't, I know I sound like a broken record when I talk about specifically me and Dan's fans. I can't believe how much they respect us and how much they love us. I have said it before, and I hope I don't sound like begging for any kind of sympathy or anything like that. But there was a long, long, long period in my life where I didn't know if people loved me, and that's a scary feeling when you think that you're all alone and nobody loves you. And now, man, it's thousands and thousands of people that show me love, and I could never ever thank you enough for that. I will try to continue to do you proud, and I will hope that I can continue to make life a little bit better for you. And let's see what happens in the next few months. I don't know. I hope you continue to ride the ride with us.
Continue to ride the ride with us on FTR with Dax. We'll see you next week.
Tore it down, waiting on them, but they're here now. Here they come to burn the town, like Henry and Jim and Double A. They'll send your soul to judgment day. Respect the past and what it say. You better move your